All right, let's bring him in. You know him from the Rush Hour podcast, the Afternoon Rush podcast, the Nighttime Rush podcast. I think he's got a Midnight Snack Rush Hour podcast. I'm losing track of how many he's got. Dave Neal. Dave, what's up?
If there's a chance to make money, I'll podcast it. Let's do it.
The Midnight Snack Rush Hour. Like, you release it at like 1:30 in the morning. I think that's...
Boy, I know. I'm trying to scale back. I mean, there's so much news out there, though. What can you do, you know?
I know. I wanted to bring that up later on. We're going to discuss the things that you're now discussing. But now that we're in the holiday season and, Thanksgiving, Augie is... 18 months now?
Yeah.
Around there?
Yeah, it's almost 19 months.
Does he get the concept yet of Thanksgiving and or Christmas? Is he into the Santa thing? Does he get that part?
He has no idea. But he's obsessed with the little candle lights that go in the windows. So his whole personality is trying to steal them, and we're at the in-laws' house, and they have them too. So he's just trying to help him. He's running around looking like Lumiere from, you know what I mean? But no, he's obsessed with tearing down all of the things that we've set up. So it's my wife's worst nightmare.
I was going to say, obviously, following you and Tasha on Instagram, she's a big Christmas woman. Like, she wants to set up early as possible, right? Like,
yeah, she's like Halloween night. Like Halloween night, she eats the candy and starts with like the Mariah Carey Christmas. And I'm like, I'm traditionally like begin on Black Friday, but probably wait till December 1st. But it's the easiest thing in a marriage to just go along with. Like, when it comes to picking your fights, it's like, look, you want Christmas music? I'll waterboard you with Christmas music. I don't care.
Yeah. Do you guys do you do a real tree or do you do the put together tree?
We did a real one last year. I've never had a fake one. This is the first year we have a fake one because we're going to be out of town. So we had we had a watering dilemma. So we had someone in our neighborhood giving away their fake one, but the new fake ones are like $1,400.
What?
Yeah.
They are?
Yeah, because we wanted like the 9-footer, and the traditional one is 7. So those extra 2 feet will cost you.
Are you going to be back where you are now? Are you going to be back in Kentucky for Christmas, or are you guys going somewhere else?
We'll be in Nashville.
Oh,
yeah. I'm going to have a week of shows I'm going to be doing in New York. So we were like, well, you can't get where we're going to come back from New York like mid-December. You can't then purchase a Christmas tree. But if you get one a week earlier and you're not feeding, this whole dilemma. And I'm just like, you know what? We're going fake.
So Augie's not into Christmas? He doesn't even acknowledge Santa?
He will be after this year, but last year he was 6 months old. He was he was just in, no clue. So now he's like, he just gets lights. Like they always say that you want to take, like, you could spend thousands going to Disney World, or you could take your kid to the lighting section at Home Depot. And at the age he's at, he would rather just like mess around with someone's like entertainment center in their home. Like a Roku remote control is literally all that makes him happy.
Seems simple.
It is. And we've tried getting him nicer things, but in the end he just wants to like play with my shoes and touch whatever he's not supposed to touch.
Yeah, like when you have him in your studio, he just wants to play with all those buttons on the studio stuff.
I'll go into my studio and like things will be turned off. There was a scene in Forrest Gump when he's speaking. He's giving a speech. Do you remember the scene in front of the the memorial? And there's a guy pulling all of the cords, like some Vietnam protester. That's my son. He sees cords and he just pulls the most expensive ones first. So yeah, it's but hey, what can you do?
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our favorite topic, which is Laura Owens. As something actually came down yesterday that I didn't know about, and maybe it's nothing major. I just saw it on the Clayton's Justice Twitter account. Why don't you explain to people the latest in the Laura Owens saga and what's been going on? Oh my gosh,
it's crazy. I'm in a group chat with the victims. A victim, not that I'm a victim, but like the boys, and it's like to think the amount of wins that they have had after years of dealing with her. So her former attorney is charged with like a handful, or they say they have enough information to recommend charging him, and he'll probably lose his license, his law license. Laura they've doubled the charges from 7 to 14 felonies. I think it's customary that they offer you a plea deal in most cases. Like, they never want to take these things to trial. They almost never go to trial. They say, here's all the charges. If you admit to this, we'll cut it down to probation or whatever. The question is going to be, when they give her a plea deal, will they cut it down to probation, or will the plea deal involve jail time? And will she, in the plea deal, will involve her admitting to things? So they might knock off like 1 out of 3 perjury charges or whatever, but there's still going to be like serious things she's going to have to admit to. So I don't think she's going to admit to anything, kind of judging by her past, which means she's going to, be up against like 55 years in prison, which is just like, she's going to be 90.
Yeah, I don't know who's giving her advice. Clearly, it's nobody good. They're not giving her the right advice. But I don't know if you saw it, but the last time I had Rachel Juarez on, as we were recording, was when the additional 7 counts came down. And, I put that out as one of my clips, and it actually, finally, a YouTube short that actually got some traction, because YouTube.
What great timing, though.
Yeah, I know.
To have the beautiful Emmy-winning Rachel Juarez there. I mean.
Yeah, it was just funny that we were recording, and I said, Rachel, I got to stop you right now, because I had gotten a text from one of the people in the group that said they took a screenshot of the Arizona County Prosecutor's Office press release that said 7 additional counts, and I read those to her. And Rachel has basically said since then she is under the impression that there's no way that the Arizona Prosecutor's Office is going through this much investigation work, putting up 14 counts for there not to be jail time attached to any plea deal. She says there's just no way. They're not going to go through with all this to put her on probation for 2 to 5 years.
And look, I get that they do these plea deals with a lot of offenders because it's like not worth the trial time. But Rachel Mitchell, this isn't her money. This is Arizona taxpayer money. I'm sure she wants this thing to go to trial. It's like a dunk competition. She's got all of the evidence, and it's gonna, she's elected, and this is a good looking thing, knowing your entire audience is on the side of exposing truth. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I don't think that she would want this thing to just like not get that PR.
Speaking of Gingras, by the way, guy you were talking about earlier, her lawyer. I don't know if I told you, but I had a long conversation with him. When was this? This was the day. Oh God, he contacted me for a particular reason. Oh, it was after I had Rachel on, and he claims someone sent me a video. Someone sent me a clip from your interview with Rachel. He absolutely just despises. He hates Rachel Juarez with a passion, which goes to the fact that I just think he is a very, very much a woman hater. He hates women. He also hates smart, confident women that could absolutely run circles around him in any sort of debate. That's why internally I think he really hates Rachel, because what has she ever done to him? Like, I mean, I had them debate together, and he spoke for 90% of the time, and she still out-debated him and talked circles around him. So
yeah, and it's like he's a glutton for punishment, like nobody's like going after him. He keeps on bringing this. He brings this on himself. Like he's trying to do all this shit with me, and it forces me to have to, like, I don't know, put him in his place. The thing with Rachel, obviously, he does this like lawyer measuring contest, but with me, I think the thing was, I don't know. There's it's like an insecurity. It's a need to like beat people. Like it's a hyper competitiveness, and yet he hitched himself to such a big loser that he's literally won nothing. I think he's got one person online that like gives him the benefit of the doubt, so it's probably a burner account. But at what point will he just admit, hey, I vigorously defended my client, I tried my best, but whatever. But in the end, I mean, the guy's going to lose his license, whatever credibility he had. It probably, it not to mention the time he's lost. He's lost a year of his life working for free. I mean, like we're all making that ad money, living our best life, and the guy's just got nothing but an extra DUI out of the deal.
Yeah, it was an interesting conversation, to say the least, with Gingras. And it was just, again, just like every other conversation I've had with him, it's just incredibly, incredibly frustrating. And me telling him to his face, because it was, we did do it over video, and I did record it, but he just doesn't seem to get a lot of things. I just personally told him, David, I don't know how you, I told him, David, I don't think you realize how you come across to people, because the way he was talking about Rachel Juarez to me was, if people could only hear this, they would be appalled. They wouldn't be surprised based on his online persona, but they would be appalled at the things that he was saying. And I'm like, David, this is exactly what I'm talking about.
She's Ivy League educated. I mean, not to mention he came after Rachel Mitchell's husband. Okay, yeah. How dumb do you can literally never work again in the state where, or in the county where you went after the prosecutor's husband, making a lot of interesting claims and asking a lot of questions, and then he does the same to the Judge Mata. It's like, at what point, like, we all get a mulligan once in a while where we all have that one person we just hate, and you just want to, but it's like, if the whole world's against you, man, maybe it's you. Yeah. And you always wonder, like, what are the odds that someone like him could be hitched up with someone like Laura? But the truth is, I'm sure there was 50 to 100 lawyers that said no to her before this guy rolled in. So that, like, the confirmation bias of crazy sort of finds itself.
Speaking of lawyers in regards to Laura, we did find out, I think a week or 2 weeks ago, or no, it was earlier this week. It was on the or earlier last week. It was the fact that we found out that her criminal defense team, she's requested a public defender. Now, do we know, based on any rumblings that you have heard, do we know if her lawyer for this criminal case dumped her, or if she dumped him, or was it mutual separation?
I don't think he gave specifics. At least it hasn't been made public yet, but he left for ethical reasons. I mean, you can't just leave. You have to kind of give a reason, and it was ethical. So my guess is he doesn't believe her. It might be the same reason that the lawyer right before Gingras left, I can't remember her name, but it's like, boy, there must be skid marks leaving her property from lawyers, just like lawyers and men. It's like one blowjob, and then you got to just peel out of the casita before the sperm hit the ovary, or however it works. But yeah, look, it's all these people, and I actually, what's interesting is I think I am more compassionate and defensive of Laura, because I see them ripping her off. Like, Gingras wanted attention out of this. He got it. He got the wrong kind. But a narcissist, they feed off that attention, and I don't even think it matters what kind it is. And so he kind of like robbed Laura of whatever, probably lied to her and said, you got a case, you got this, you got that, when all he did was make it worse. She was in quicksand up to her knees, and he just shook her until she went down to her shoulders. And the same thing happened with this other guy, Karlsrud. He's clearly a whore for the TV. He's, doing every Access radio show. And it's like, bro, why did you take the case? Like, you knew. 5 minutes of research, you would have known. Like, if I was the judge, I would have been like, you know what? No, you're here. You're in it. Stick around. So now I kind of feel bad. She got a public defender, and he seems, these are all professional lawyers, and it's her duty to get a fair trial. My guess is when she loses, she'll play some sort of victim who didn't get the best representation because Justice for Clayton drained her. The whole game where she spent years claiming she had all this unlimited money to punish these guys. It's just the all Wizard of Oz. Just, you pull back the curtain, and it's just a frail, scared woman behind, who is pulling the lever with, ChatGPT and Adobe Acrobat. And we pulled the curtain back, we exposed it for what it is, and now it's like, just admit it. Just admit it. Quit. You're going to be in jail till you're 88.
What's interesting is, on those extra 7 counts, that had to do with the Greg Gillespie case, which is the stuff that basically you uncovered. And it was literally, how cool was that to see the stuff that You basically were able to find the sonogram, the ultrasound that she stole off YouTube, and the faked doctor notes were literally part of those 7 counts. That must have been cool for you.
There's few things that I can specifically take credit for. The faked HCG test that she sent to me from Clayton, that's 100% like that was in my inbox. The Greg Gillespie stuff, there was a lot of people that had that information. We found the Fiverr logo, which is just like above and beyond ridiculous, but that's what's crazy is Greg had all of that evidence. He had screen recorded him on the phone with her while she's sending him stuff. Like there's no like, she can claim, oh, this is fake, that's fake. It's like, oh, the whole thing's fake. Did he create this whole reality? And he had someone, and that's what's crazy is he had all of that and yet he still has a restraining order against him. So all I did, just like you did, was we put this online for people to see and then let the attention economy kind of do its thing. But it's important because, we knew at the time it was a ticking time bomb. At any moment she was about to fake a miscarriage. And at that point, if Clayton doesn't have, her committing perjury or, proof of her, faking documents, then it's just a he said, she said, and he looks like an asshole. And then we just never know, and that window, that like October 2023, I believe, that window was just such a crucial time. And I think the whole community kind of, prodding at her to really produce information, put her on her, on her heels when she was used to being on her knees, but this put her on her heels. And so like telling her she was about to fake a miscarriage. She probably had the blog written about her miscarriage, and then because we called her out on it, she had to wait another month, and then new fake information came out. So, yeah, now that I think about it, in that extra 7 counts, they accused her of faking an ultrasound with somebody else. Wasn't that the one that she sent me? Now that I think about it, probably that was. Yeah. That was the big one. What she sent you was huge, and then she quickly denied it, and of course, the way that was all exposed, and yeah, it's just a big win for everyone involved. And it's funny when new people come around. This Anjanette from Law and Crime, I did her show last week, and she's in that, Law and Crime's got like 7 million YouTube subscribers, and Anjanette, she did like a 20-30 minute video on it, but missed a few things. And I was talking to her, and I was like, oh, I'm sure the crew came after you pretty hard. She's like, yeah, they're pretty aggressive. I was like, yeah, they know a lot of information, so like you'll catch up, you'll redeem yourself. But it's kind of like, welcome to the big leagues. We're throwing fastballs, and it's just very rare that you can kind of hit a cultural moment where there are enough eyeballs on something. And boy, there's a few other cases coming out that are going to be like that, like the Baldoni one. But there's a Rebel Wilson case coming out that involves defamation. That's like, the public gets involved with this, I think, because they see a lot of gaslighting and they see the abuse of power. You just like people with a lot of money coming after people. And in Laura's case, she didn't have a lot of money, but she had she had the clout of a family that used to have a lot of money, and that was enough to get these guys to not want to drain them. You drain a guy 30 grand, and that's like enough to ruin his couple of years. Most people are trying to pay off their student loan debt, and then there she is. And she knows how to work the free angle. She's getting like victims advocacy, funds, I'm assuming, who knows what kind of money, like charitable money, was given to her. And then everything else she did, for free, really.
Well, that Anjanette person kind of reminds me of what her public defender is going to be facing, in that Anjanette, was notified of the story, but obviously with 2 years of info to catch up on. How is this public defender? Like, look, the criminal trial is supposed to be in January. We know it's not going to happen in January. There's just no way, especially when someone is literally taking over the case in November. But whoever her public defender is, there's no way he can possibly get every detail of this case by the time, if it goes to trial, if she does not accept a plea deal. Yeah, there's just no way this guy's going to be, or this guy or woman is going to be able to catch up to all this.
I think it's a guy. What's so funny with Anjanette is like she basically made some assumptions. She was like, Laura was filing a parenting plan because she was trying to get money out of these guys. And I was like, no. She's like, why would anybody sue somebody if it's not for money? I was like, Welcome to Laura Owens. She's creating stories. It's like the money comes from the attention. Like attention is worth something, especially if you have a podcast. People do things in today's world to, fabricate victimhood, and whether, who knows what she was going to do with it. But obviously she proved in the past that was her ticket to a TED Talk, so she was like, she's sitting on this podcast that she's doing, and she's got The Bachelor stiffing her, her claims. And I don't think she wanted money out of him. I think she wanted a story.
I think about it now, and I want to say that I have at least 2 or 3 emails from her where she specifically states in her emails, I'm not doing this for money. I don't want Clayton's money. I don't want anybody's money. I just want a parenting plan for my unborn twins. I'm just like,
well, she knows by this point that there's nothing she can get money-wise. Like, she already tried to sue Greg Gillespie for emotional distress. I still think she'll sue me for that and other people, but that's a different issue. But with Clayton, she did try to extort him. I mean, at one point, she was like, I'll drop the charges for $1.4 million. And he's like, you're going to have to go F yourself. But that was extortion, if you ask me. And of course she was like, no, it's just the market value of the things I would have bought. Not to mention she wouldn't have paid 100% payment. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whatever. But it's like these things left and right. So it's like, it's kind of like a jukebox. When Anjanette's asking me a question, I have to be like, okay, C3, and then pull out my 10-minute rant about that. Oh, it's like, because there's so much you could get into. And there's obviously a podcast docuseries being made, and I'm like, God bless the editors of that, because there's hundreds of hours of interviews for them to go through.
Yeah, including interviews with myself, with you, with Clayton, I'm sure with Mike and Greg and Rachel. I mean, we've all been interviewed for this podcast series that I don't know the exact launch date of this. When I was initially interviewed for it, I was signing back in July or August. I thought it was coming out end of 2025, but it looks like it's being pushed to 2026. Is there anything you can update everybody on what's going on with the podcast?
I don't have a date. I don't have a title. I'll let you know when I do, but it will be, I'm still assuming it's in Q1 2026, but I think that January date is going to be like no chance. But I think what they realize is it's bigger than they thought it would be. So they'll if they make 8 episodes, I have no idea. I think they'll just keep adding on episodes as things come out. And then from there, it's like, honestly, like all of these streaming sites that didn't buy the documentary, it's like, well, get in line now, because there's gonna absolutely, and at first you want to have it made so everyone can tell their story, and now it's kind of like, no, it's gonna be done the right way. Maybe it doesn't come out till 2028. I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe whoever buys it, they rush it through and they do multiple seasons. I have no idea, but it's gonna happen whether Laura wants to be a part of it or not.
All right, I want to move on to something. I don't want to spend too much time on this because this just happened today. You probably didn't see it. You were in the car driving to your in-laws. And this isn't a major thing, but it's something you and I have talked about privately, and I think publicly a couple of times we've talked about it, and that is Nick Viall's disdain for content creators. Well, Game of Roses had on a woman by the name of Storytime with Ricky, who covers Love is Blind and does spoilers for Love is Blind. And she breaks a lot of stories. I've had her on my podcast a couple times. She's really big. She's like the reality Steve of Love is Blind world, and getting court documents, people sending her text messages, screenshots, all this stuff. She went on with Game of Roses today, and I listened to the podcast. And last week, Nick brought her up, but again, didn't bring her up by name, but literally talked about something that she reported. And Natalie's like, well, what do we call her? And he's like, irrelevant. And so they had a discussion about why Nick Viall has such a hard time, even though we are, myself, you, people like Storytime with Ricky, are doing stories that he ends up covering on his podcast, yet we are irrelevant. We're, what does he call it? Micro podcasts or something like that. Yeah. He's insulted She's All Batch as well when they have reported something. It's like he reports on the stuff, he talks about the stuff that we report on, but will never give credit to where it came from. It just absolutely bothers the shit out of me. And again, but he did it again today, or he did it last week. They talked about it today, and that's why I wanted to bring it up with you. Do you think, I mean, my opinion is he just thinks he's so far above us, he doesn't want to give anybody else any sort of attention that he feels could get some sort of run out of him mentioning their name, our names on his podcast.
You know, my show is actually run by the Viall Files podcast network, so I can't talk any trash about him. I'm just kidding. I saw that Susie was working with him, and I'm like, Susie, I'll pay you to not work with him.
Yeah.
Not Susie. No, go get your bag. Do what you got to do. Yeah. There is a fear and insecurity that comes from, and it's called imposter syndrome, right? Yeah. When you don't feel like you deserve to be where you are. Nick's done great with his show, but you can see that insecurity play out. Game of Roses, Chad and Lizzie are amazingly talented. They are so unique. They carved out a space in a very crowded community. Obviously, you're the godfather with that, and you've done that as well to your own space, your own loyal audience. Like Nick couldn't do a weekend in Vegas where people are going to want to go see him. That's like he has like a disdain for his followers in the way that you see someone who feels like if Nick were to do that, he would have a velvet rope around him and not, you know what I mean? Like that's just, and again, don't take my word for it. Like you said, go see his actions. There's the most snooty, condescending, thing about him, even though all of these people made it in the most democratic way because audiences loved them, period. And everyone finds something, it's like a dogfight. Everyone's finding, an angle and something to talk about. And Nick comes at it, with his, team of, assistants and producers, and they think that their shit doesn't stink. It's mind-boggling. But, look, hey, whatever. He's successful by all means. But when you have the corporate boost of 1 million followers to get started, you then place in the rankings immediately. Like, you literally fall up the ladder. It just don't kick the ladder underneath you and think that you're the only one who can make it, big dog. Like, we're all out here, being relatively successful.
Yeah, that's what he does. And yeah, I could easily say that there's nothing. I mean, if you took probably everything that I do, you do, Chad does, She's All Batch does, Courtney does, it probably doesn't equal what he's doing in terms of, I don't know, money-making ability and his listenership.
Oh, my YouTube's crushing it. Are you kidding me? No. Every once in a while he'll get that good interview that gets 500,000 views, but on the day-to-day, no. I mean, I'm not saying that to brag. Like I'm happy to do my own thing. I mentioned before when he was getting his network started off, he actually reached out to me to see if I would work with him. He obviously he was going to try to attract, people to be a part of his network, and there are things he does good. There's some people like that kind of catty kind of way of asking questions. Like he was covering the Justin Baldoni stuff, and there was a story that was completely wrong that said Baldoni's case was over, and Nick was like, see, told you so. And he had this snarky thing, but he was reporting on a faulty story that had since been debunked. And it's like, man, this guy is he's bad on the technical end of what he does. He's not, and I think when other people see it, they're like, gosh, whatever, man, people can choose what to do with their time. If someone catches this in the Nick Viall fan page, they might think I'm a hater, but it's just on a technical level, I would invest in Game of Roses 1 million times before him, because they're like really talented people in the entertainment industry that made something out of nothing.
Well, what's interesting is, and obviously you are very balls deep into Baldoni-Lively stuff. You've been covering it literally since it started. But me on the outside, who watched it for 2 weeks and then said, this is just getting way too much for me. The one thing that I have noticed, I have seen clips, because Nick shows up on my For You page a lot, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram. I see a lot of his clips, and I'll watch his clips. I'll never sit and listen to an 1.5-hour podcast that he does, but I'll watch his clips, and I've always thought it was interesting. And the fact that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds both follow Nick Viall on Instagram, and the fact that Mint Mobile was a sponsor on his podcast for a long time, I got to believe the reason he has sided with Blake Lively from the very beginning of all this is because he's got somebody on their side, the Lively Reynolds side, that he is protecting or doesn't want to piss off. It's got to be, because why would Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively be following Nick Viall?
You know, I did a Mint Mobile ad 3 weeks, and maybe I'll do another one. And I knew I was going to piss off some people because they were, you know, you're going to change, Dave, now that you took that Ryan Reynolds money. And I was like, I'm going to take whatever money that comes, as long, as long as it's not some crazy MAGA coffee, company that there's one company I turned down. It was MAGA coffee, and I was like, I think I'm going to pass. I'll stick to Starbucks. Thank you. But look, I don't think Nick has a sinister motivation. I just think he's lazy in his consumption of the case and has decided what side he's on. Early on, he was like, oh, Baldoni gave me the ick. It's the same thing. A good-looking guy with 8 abs comes and does your show, and you're jealous. If I were to have Baldoni on, I would compliment his 8 abs and want to be friends with him. Nick's the personality type that would rather talk trash about him on the way out the door. And you can watch that episode to find out. Because Baldoni, he practices the Baha'i faith, which is a very humble, it's a very loving community. And he's really, no evidence has come out that he's done anything wrong. The only evidence that's come out is Blake projecting what she accused him of. Blake accused him of unwanted touching, unwanted kissing. So then he releases the scene where she wrote in her own kiss. It goes back and forth, and she made a lot of claims. And for several months, she colluded with the New York Times to out him. And then with 1 hour's notice, they asked him for comment on it. You know what I mean? This New York Times article was meant to destroy him. It was a finish him, Mortal Kombat, kill you article, and it did for about 48 hours, and then he gave his response, and no evidence has come out. The only thing Blake Lively has is that she says the smear campaign is untraceable, so therefore it exists, but you'll never find it out. And it's like, well, that's not evidence. That's like a conspiracy. And so Nick was covering it early on, and a lot of people, that came out of the woodworks that have read the case and everything, they gave him a lot of criticism, and he was like, oh, it's too toxic, I'm not going to cover it. And then the second it looks like Blake's going to win, 9 months later, he pops his head out told you so. And it's like, bro, I made this video going word for word everything he was saying, but you know how it is. For a year, I had to make content where he was getting the Laura Owens story wrong, and I just had to continue to respond and be like, bro, I'm not a hater. We just have to correct the record here because you're willfully ignorant in the way you're covering all of this.
And I hate the way the word hater is thrown around. If you're correcting somebody who's getting things that are factually incorrect, anytime Nick has said something about anything, in whether it's regards to me or whether it was the Clayton case, I get some people emailing me saying, Steve, you're biased because you hate Nick. I'm just like, look, if it was anybody saying this, I would call them out and say, look, you're factually incorrect. You're not expressing an opinion. You're being factually incorrect in what your opinion is about.
That's what's so funny is you're the last person he allowed on in that sort of environment where because you go and do his show, and if people haven't watched it, you got to go watch it. I'm surprised he hasn't taken it down. I mean, he got owned. I mean, in the comment section doesn't lie. And, you leave there going, I feel like that was, who knows? And then it's like the internet, the audience, they are so fair. They're so fair about this type of stuff that all your job, my job, is to tell the truth and be as good about it as possible. If I get something wrong, I'll make a video tomorrow apologizing. What do I care? If Nick gets something wrong, he's going to stake his whole identity into digging into that wrong until he can, he did it to, he did it to Katie Thurston and all the other, Blake Horstman, nonstop going after these people. So for me, when I see that as a content creator, I'm looking at this like David and Goliath style. Nick's the one with the platform, and these folks are just trying to overcome their edit on their show, or and he forgets that he was also the F-boy that was hated, and he thinks it's part of the baptism that everyone else has to go through it. I don't know. So he can keep doing it. That's the beauty of the internet, right? People can decide to watch it. They can watch you. They can watch me. It's whatever.
I think our history really stems from that video I released where, somebody from my past happened to be sitting behind him on a plane, and he got in trouble for it by the show. Now, clearly, he got in trouble for it at the time, but as far as I know, he never had to pay any fine. He says, basically, in so many words, it caused him emotional distress, and he was at a really low point. But ever since I released that video, he's done, 3 more shows? He's gotten to host reunion shows. He went on Special Forces. Like, clearly my video of him basically breaking his contract and talking about what happened to him on the show, it's like, get over it, dude. It was 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
And if he centers when he interviews you, if he centers the conversation about, man, how much that like really hurt him and really went into the reasons why, I think people would feel for him. But like his producer, they had this like real negative. You could tell that the second you were out of there, they were high-fiving you. You could just tell that. And everyone who watches it, literally everyone, has been in that position where you've had like a weird interaction with somebody or a friend group, and you walked away and you knew they were going to be talking trash about you. And everyone got to watch that play out. And it's honestly like, send it to the Smithsonian, put that in the record book as a real interesting moment where he thought he was going to dunk on you, and you just hit him with a Olive Garden breadstick and just shut him down.
I was actually thinking about doing that as one for my Patreon subscribers, doing a rewatch of the Nick interview. And
please do that.
There's a part of me that wants to do it, and there's a part of me is I have not watched the interview since it happened. If I were to sit there and rewatch it, I might find some stuff that maybe he was right on. I remember at the time thinking I thought it went somewhat well, it was okay. I did think that he was trying to kind of pull a bunch of gotcha moments on me, or aha, you're wrong, Steve. Like, we're going to disagree until the end of time. And this is kind of funny now, but we're going to disagree until the end of time, me and Nick, about my reporting on Demi. Not the Demi stuff that happened after the fact with me and her, the thing that obviously made news. I'm talking about the Demi situation where I was giving spoilers to what happened on her season of Bachelor in Paradise, and I said, hey, she's in a relationship with a woman named Christian, and they got engaged at the end of this thing. And Nick says, you outed Demi before she had the right to tell people in her life. You outed her before she could tell people in her life. And my stance was, Nick, I was aware that most of the people that were down filming in Paradise had already met Christian before they went and filmed. Everybody knew, not everybody watching, but people in that show knew that Demi had been seeing a woman and her name was Christian, and most of the people that were down there had met her and hung out with her pre-show. And he said, that doesn't matter. You shouldn't have done it. And I said, well, I was doing spoilers.
That's like white knight territory by Nick. Does Nick care about Demi? Has he shown that he, or is it just like, I'm going to get this point on reality, Steve? And that's just where it gets kind of, complicated. And I think everyone was on your side because you didn't, in that interview you didn't get all like defensive. You just answered. You were like, you were ready for a confrontation, but you kind of held your own. And in the like sort of court of public opinion, everyone can, and by the way, people can go watch it. Don't take my word for it or your word for it. I didn't know you. When that came out, I didn't know you. And when I rewatched it, I didn't know you or him. And I was like, man, I mean, what a case in like bringing your personal like laundry into an interview and it just backfiring. And since then, he hasn't had people on that have been even remotely. And I get it. Like, look, I wouldn't want to invite someone into my living room if they didn't like me. But like, I mean, I truly have no hate for him. I just like, I'm like almost boggled by him as a brand because it is bad quality content from the standpoint of like, they never pull up the actual clips. His whole show is this, and I'm going to be covering this tomorrow on my podcast. His whole show is, so basically they said this, and then he contorts what somebody said to make it fit into his point, and it's not what they said. My whole show is going, no, here's what they actually said. I'll hit the play button because it's a multimedia where we can do that, and then you can actually get the truth. But again, it's like that's when someone's catty, they'd rather tell you what they think someone meant, and we live in the world where we can just actually fact check.
You said we didn't know each other back then when I did Nick's video. We didn't. Did you do a video on that? I'm curious. Do you think you did?
I wasn't even doing like that tertiary. I was only
doing
like
them yet?
recaps. So I never reacted. So if you ever do your Patreon watching that, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, no, maybe you can join if I decide to do it at some point. I've thought about it, but then I was like, there's a part of, I don't want to throw the term PTSD out there, but there's a part of me that doesn't even want to relive it. I don't know. I got to think about it. I almost feel like I got to rewatch it first before I decide, and I don't even know if I want to rewatch it.
Well, maybe for your 50th birthday, I'll frame like the top comment from that video because there are some priceless comments, and it's like, look, Nick, he does. And didn't you say he? When he gets dunked on, he has a way of framing it. He's like, well, you've got a lot of fans, and it's like, yeah, no, people just don't like, you got it wrong. You got it wrong. And so right now he's in the middle of getting it wrong on the Blake Lively thing. And it's like, whatever, just, more content to make because, there are plenty of victims in it. It's just not Blake Lively. To think that the 100-millionaire Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are somehow the damsel in distress. It's like, gosh, does he have that story wrong?
Well, the interesting thing is at the time that interview came out, a lot of people were giving him 1 stars on Apple Podcasts. And then if you read the comments underneath that YouTube video, it's probably running 90 to 95% in favor of me. And then his very next podcast, for the first, 10 or 15 minutes, he talked about the interview. And his stance was, man, Reality Steve's got some really passionate fans, but never apologized for the way he handled it, never said anything about him having an agenda going in, which was clear he wanted to dunk on me or give you a gotcha moment. And he took no responsibility for the way he conducted the interview. And, I know things behind the scenes that he was saying about me, and it's just hilarious that he didn't do it.
You ever meet someone and their first question is, "Oh, what do you think of so and so?" And they're like waiting for you to talk shit so they can talk shit. That's how I imagine his whole if you went to a cocktail party, and again, there's people that are friends with him that I think are good people. So it's not. I'm sure there's a good version of him to people he thinks deserve that. I love Susie. She works with them and fantastic. But he just, and again, it comes down to this insecurity, but he just looks down on people that didn't get, and by the way, it should be the opposite. We should look down on them because they were like run through a corporate machine before they got famous. Yeah. But we don't, because when you come up, and a lot of comedians have a lot of humility this way, because when you come up through like a peer group that everyone's trying to figure it out and do their thing, your success is very small step at a, one step at a, I mean, you were sending emails to friends about The Bachelor before you made a blog, and I mean, it's like one thing after another. Like you have a real clear formula to your success, and it's not just banging somebody under a yurt or something.
Yeah, you mentioned one of the last topics I wanted to get to here. You mentioned comedians, and then earlier, about 10 minutes ago, you mentioned how you've turned down some advertisers that didn't align with stuff that you talk about or about your brand.
The bar is very low, by the way. I mean, it has to be a bad company.
What's interesting is, and this has come up in the stand-up world, was this comedy festival in Riyadh that a lot of the top names in stand-up went to go do to collect a massive paycheck. I don't know if we know the numbers of what they collected, but clearly they went there to put on a comedy show and got a shit ton of money for a government that, is not the greatest government in the world, to say the least, obviously.
And they tried to make it seem like, well, we're no better. But the deal is this, like it was a state-run comedy festival by a country that literally a couple years ago, a journalist named Khashoggi, who was an American, he lived in the States, but he is a Saudi Arabian. He was murdered with a bone saw and carried out in suitcases because he spoke up against the government. And he spoke for women's rights. So like, this isn't apples to apples, right? Saudi Arabia, like some of these countries, it's okay, maybe they're a step behind us or whatever, but like, and again, the U.S. is doing a lot of crazy things right now, but you should also turn down a stand-up show put on by Trump, because comedy, your brand has to be like a truth teller. It sounds cheesy to say, but you can't be bought by somebody. No, you take sponsors and it's like whatever. But when it comes down to it, they all got, like, Bill Burr got criticized because people really respected that they would hear like the truth of who he is and what he stands for. And if you take that blood money, you can no longer have that perspective I'm going to tell you the truth because I can't be bought. So it's super easy for people to say, yeah, but you take ads or you do this. And it's like, well, where's the line in the sand? And like, don't pretend, like, because to the Saudis, they're buying all of our golfers and Beyonce, and they're doing it because they're trying to welcome themselves into the first world after, all of the slave labor and, oil money that got them to where they are. And it's like, all right, whatever. But like in the comedy world, I thought comics were kind of known for like, rather living on your buddy's couch than like, this isn't what Lenny Bruce got arrested for. So that people could just, go cash in for $1 million. And again, it was a lot of comics that didn't need the money. Now, I would have done the Saudi Arabian gig for a price. I studied economics. There's a price for everything, but it would have involved me getting a lot of disrespect for and for the rest of my comedy career, having to hear from people going, "Oh, you sell out," and that's what people like Bill Burr are gonna have to deal with.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're a big Bill Burr guy. I know you are a big fan of his and you love his comedy. What is your take? Do you feel a little bit less about it? You're not going to cancel him, and Bill Burr isn't canceled. He's still going to sell out shows. What is your thoughts that he did it?
It's like, look, I get it. Like, they took the money. Like, I get it. It's a lot. I'm sure it was $1 million. Some of these other guys, it was like a year's worth of their touring. So I get it. It's just, the point is, like, I'm not disappointed. I'm not like a fan. I'm just like, boy, that was a good reminder that be careful who you listen to, because all of the agents, like, what's Bill Burr's agent's name? Do you know?
No.
Exactly. And he got 10% of that deal, right? They don't have to deal, like Jim Gaffigan's agent doesn't have to deal with whatever fallout. They just collect the money. So they're all happy to cash in on a deal like this for literally having to do nothing. And then the comics go like, whoops, I guess, geez. Yeah. And they've realized that this was a real, comedy fans, they're entitled, and to a point. Like, a lot of comedy fans invest a lot of time into their favorite comedians, and they want a few basic things. Don't rip me off. You're not worth a $200 ticket. Like, just shake my hand after the show. I've done shows with some like famous comedians that would like hide from their fans after the show, and it's like, anyone who comes to my show, like, I'll talk till my voice is gone. Like, you came to see the show and then get a photo after, or like hang out, and like, that's part of what it is. And some of these comics, I guess, it got some bad advice or forgot what it was all about.
Well, the thing that was interesting, I understand why Saudis went after the big names in comedy, but the thing that was interesting was every comedian who did do this is already top of the food chain when it comes to stand-up. The Whitney Cummings of the world, the Bill Burrs of the world, they're already millionaires. What did that's why if Saudi would have came to a bunch of people who were strumming it on Thursday and Friday nights at 150 to 200 seat clubs and offered them $500,000 to go to Saudi, of course that makes more sense. They probably need the money more.
But what they needed was they needed Western Hollywood to be there.
Yeah, I get it on their end. They needed the big names.
They didn't need the best singer. They need Beyonce. They need to show, like, look, and that's why, like, the fact that the I think it was the Prince of Saudi Arabia was in the Oval Office last week is ridiculous, because again, this is the guy that hired the hit that murdered a journalist who, the journalist Khashoggi was going to the consulate, I believe, in Istanbul, and he never came out, right? They literally murdered him and poured acid on him and let it go down the drains and carry the rest. I hate to be graphic, but that's what they did in the modern world. And that's just one story, like one brazen story. I was in Qatar, and right before, a couple of years ago, just on a layaway, and I don't think I can fly through I don't think I can fly through the Middle East anymore because I've talked a lot of shit. And and I'm going through Qatar, and I'm supposed to be impressed with all of this beautiful art and architecture that they have. But everything that they have, it's all because they paid some French artist to come in because they have all of this oil money. And when it was their time to have the World Cup, they hired a bunch of literally lower class Indian and other countries men, and they have these like work visas. And by the way, this is what they wanted to do in the US, which is like they can literally, they are company sponsored visas. So you're allowed in the country as long as the company wants you there. And they brought all these people in basically as indentured servants to build all these stadiums and housing. And then they held onto their passports. I'm like, this is literally modern day slavery that they were doing. And then, I mean, imagine if you have an issue at work, you can't go to anybody. They'll just like, they literally have your passport. So the more I look into it, the more I was like, I don't know, this is kind of all dirty and shady. And again, it's nothing against the people. It's nothing against the religion. It's the absolute billions that they have that can just buy people. And it's like, we have our own issues in our country, but it shouldn't stop us from speaking out about that. And yeah, I mean, the comics, they'll just have to deal with the fact that, like, you know, no matter what they say or do, people could be like, yeah, but you took the Saudi money.
One final thing. You went on the Rachel Uchitel podcast last week, and it was interesting because Rachel Uchitel is an interesting figure for those that don't know. She first became famous because she lost her, I can't remember if it was her husband or fiance at the time. He died in 9/11, and she had a famous photo taken of her of numerous people. We all remember the pictures that were coming out after 9/11 of people standing around holding pictures of their loved ones saying, have you seen this person? And Rachel just became famous because it was, I can't remember if it was her fiance or her husband, but she lost someone in 9/11. And then from that point on, her next famous thing that she became was she was one of Tiger Woods' mistresses. And kind of a fascinating story that she is, because she got dragged through the media big time for all of that. Basically being a mistress and saying, if you knew that he was a married man, why did you get with him? And, you know, ignoring the fact that, isn't it Tiger culpable in this as well? Like, she was obviously the one that was martyred for it. But just in talking to her, did you get any sense of, did you guys ever dive into that? I didn't listen to the podcast. I saw your clips that you put up, but did you ever dive into any of her past, or was it all her asking you questions about what's going on now?
I think she has a pretty airtight like NDA, because she did have, I do believe she had a settlement with Tiger over that. And I don't think it was for nearly as much money as it should have been. But because of that, I know publicly she's pretty like squeaky clean. Although I'm sure you can like look it up online. And yeah, when I saw it, I was like, oh shoot, I would like Google her and be like, oh, what has she done? And the one question I asked her that kind of made her light up was asking her about the fact that she got her fame before she could really monetize it. And I mentioned our friend Courtney Robertson in a similar way, where back then, and I say back then, but you know, you would be on these gossip websites, but you weren't even like, nowadays you could do a wiki feat, you know, you could, I mean, obviously OnlyFans, but there's a million other ways you can, you know, rack up your Instagram following, do a bombshell interview, sell a book. You could do all these things that back then you didn't have the way to capture the attention. The attention was there, right? But it was like rain without the rain buckets, and it just kind of came and went. Now you capture that attention, you make a few fans out of it, and you make something out of it. So I think it's just like she realized she didn't, you know, a lot of people made a lot of money off of her story except for her. And I think what's interesting is there's still people that would be like kind of judgy of her, but like you never know what someone's story is and what led to that position. Yeah, there's sharks out there that go after rich and famous men, but there's also a lot of rich and famous men who have, you know, I don't know, they have wives that understand what their deal is. That wasn't it, because his wife went nuts on him respectfully. She like threw her golf clubs at him or something. I know she was like, she knew her worth, right? And she got paid. So
yeah,
I don't judge her, but like, you know, now it's like she's 50. She's doing the thing we all do. She's podcasting. It's like, welcome to the club.
Yeah. No, I mean,
you should definitely do her show.
Yeah, it must have been right around the time that she had you on. I had noticed she liked one of my reels. I think it was the Rachel Juarez one, saying Laura got 7 more counts against her. Yeah, that's the one that she liked. And I'm like, Rachel Uchitel liked one of my reels? Like, it was just weird. And then right after that is when you went on her podcast. And now I want to look at. I just want to see if she follows me. Let me see if she follows me. How do I know if she's following me?
If she was smart enough, she would. I don't know. But yeah, she's kind of like adjacent to you because she covers Bravo, and there's like such a similar world. But by the way, in a few weeks, Vanderpump comes out. Are you going to be covering it?
I'm going to watch it and I'll talk about it the next day on my daily show.
It's a brand new cast, so it'll be interesting. Yeah,
I'm definitely going to watch it, and I will talk about it, kind of like I talked about Love Is Blind, and I talk about Dancing with the Stars the next day, and Dancing with Survivor and stuff like that. Special Forces, which I watched, which was great. But
my guess is that it'll be not well received at first, just because I don't think people realize it takes time for you to like really get into a character. Like these fights aren't going to just go off on day one. So I think it'll take a little time, but I'm willing to give it a few episodes to see.
Yeah. And I think immediately the response will be, this isn't Tom, this isn't Ariana, this isn't Sandoval, all this. They're going to compare, everybody's going to be compared to the other cast, and they're all going to say that all these people are dying to be on reality TV. It's just like, you can't just limit that to this new Vanderpump cast. This is everybody that's ever appeared on reality TV. They weren't just walking down the street one day and thrown into the back of a van and put on a TV show. Like,
I think you could cast 10,000 different people in LA and put them in these circumstances and get similar results. And it's no offense to them, but the same thing with The Bachelor. Yeah, every once in a while you get a quirky, once in a generational person, but for the most part, no offense to like Jason Tartick, but you're a good looking finance bro. There's a million of them. They're out there. You put them in the scenario, shine up their shoes. They're all going to say and do something stupid. And it's not, I don't mean that as a diss to anybody, but The Bachelor, much like Vanderpump, I believe is a show where the environment is what extracts the drama.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, Dave, thanks for coming on holiday week. I really appreciate it. Have fun at the in-laws. Say hi to Tasha for me. Give Augie some plugs to play with for the next few days. Some wires, some cords that aren't plugged in, obviously. But
that's good Uncle Steve advice. Yeah. Keep your finger in outlets, kid.
Give your son some cords to play with. Yeah.
Last time you interviewed me, you were like, "So do you feed him your scraps?" He's not a dog, Steve. He's got scraps and cords. That's all he has.
Yeah. Anyway, man. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Have a good week, and obviously we'll be in touch.
You too, man. Take care.
You got it.